Chasing the Sun, episode 2, season 1. Absolutely loved it. I really love how they started off at the 10-month point where they lost against Wales. Wales beat them, and I really enjoyed the piece where Razzie's at the press conference, and they're questioning him about, like, what the heck is going on? Like, are you happy with your progress of what you made or where you are in the process? And at this point, they were at a 50% winning percentage, and they played 14 test matches and won 7. And Razzie was more of like the visionary. He was like, I'm happy where we are. We beat New Zealand in Wellington. We beat the All Blacks in Wellington. And he's like, that's all we needed. We needed that confidence boost of knowing that we're doing the right thing. And it's about the vision, not so much where we are right now. And I just really love that. And a good friend of mine told me back when I was building my podcast years ago, he said, it's not about the velocity. It's about the trajectory. So it's not about how fast you're going. It's about how high you're taking it over time, right? And so that's what, to me, rung true with what Razzie was saying. The vision was there. They may not be at the point where they're winning 100 test matches out of 100, but they're on the right track, setting up to peak at the right moment. And they want to peak at the World Cup, which is where you want to showcase all of your talent, all of your ability, and win that. And I really feel that confidence they built, as he mentioned, of beating New Zealand at that point, really inspired the team and gave them that hope that they needed, because that's the biggest thing, man. You have that hope knowing that you have the ability to win and achieve and do something that has not been done before. You just need that seed of confidence, and you continue to water that seed until it grows and, sprouts into this beautiful thing. And that's what Razzie did a fantastic job of. And the team really did a fantastic job of buying into the program that Razzie set forth and not only believing in Razzie, but believing in themselves, believing in one another, and really just having that growth and that confidence as they move forward. And the big decision that I saw within this episode was the split when they had half the team playing against Australia and half the team flying to New Zealand and play in New Zealand. The Australian match was the first one, and the media was looking at it like, what's going on? Like, what are we doing here? Do they truly have a vision? They felt like basically South Africa, Razzie was just selling it home. We're just gonna lose this game and whatever. We're not gonna beat Australia and just send our team to New Zealand. We'll see what happens. But there was a bigger vision. He was building that depth in the roster, and I really love that depth building and getting the entire team to buy in, because there's nothing more demoralizing or deflating than being a part of a team. You have your starters out there on the field and you're sitting on the bench and you're not being or feeling like you're a part of the program. They're just focusing on the starters, right? Like they feel like they're core players. I've been in that position before. I've been a starter and played a lot of games, but I've also been on the bench and had that feeling of like not feeling included, right? So I played both sides of the coin. So I know exactly where they're coming from in that respect. But what I really loved is that Razzie was like, I view a player as a player. This one is not better than this one. They're equal. He's like, I don't care if we're sending, Eben to, play against Australia or Cheslin to play against New Zealand. He views them as athletes at the same level, and there's not a huge separation. I really love that, and because it's built off that first episode of the meritocracy. It's not about the player's ability. They may be better rugby players, but it is about the fire that player has, the fight that they have in their heart, and that's what makes an incredible player. I've seen so many times in my career, in my life, that it's not about how talented the athlete is. It's about how hard the worker is in the room. People can outwork talent, right? And it's one of those things where Razzie inspired the team to believe in themselves. And I like that part where they had Eben at the press conference, and the media categorized the team playing against Australia, staying in South Africa, as the B team. And that really fueled and inspired Eben to be like, you know what? I'm not a B team player. None of us are B team athletes. So we're going to go out there and show you who we are. We're top level athletes. We're a South African rugby team as a whole, and we're not separated. We're not segregated in this part. We're all one unit. They're flying to New Zealand to handle business. and we're staying home to handle business. And I absolutely love that. And I really like Eben in this, because a lot of the times you see watching YouTube videos, they show him as that enforcer and just ringing somebody by the neck, grabbing him by the jersey. But I can see the side of Eben is just like, he has just good character, a genuine person, a nice man, and he turns it on the field. He's tough, he's aggressive, he's passionate about the game, but he's very clean athlete in the game. And I love seeing the background story and getting to hear the players get interviewed and seeing their personality. It shows me who they are, and it gives me an idea of just like, this is just an incredible person. They have incredible characteristics. They're caring, they're loving, and they just have the unity that brings them together as athletes, but outside the field, they're incredible people, and I really love that. And the player that stood out in the first half of this documentary to me, after when they were split the teams, was Herschel from the small city of Kylemore, and seeing what one player, one athlete, how they can inspire not only his family, right, but inspire that village. I don't even know if we call it a city, that village, to have somebody where they can say, like, that's our guy, he represents us. And there's something so inspiring about that, right? And I just think him having an incredibly massive breakout game. What did he have? Did he have a hat trick in that his first game out there? What an incredible showing, right? It shows that he prepared and he stepped up for that moment. There was a lot of distractions, as he was talking about growing up, to where he could have gotten into violence, gotten into drugs, this, that. But instead, he focused his energy on rugby, training, becoming a better athlete, becoming a better person, becoming a better man. And it all built up to that moment where he gets in front of the cameras and has the breakout game of his life, getting his first cap and just absolutely blowing the doors off of his career, and just, showing out who he is, inspiring that confidence in himself and his family and his city and his team and in the entire nation. And it's just cool to see how it all builds up to this big monumental moment, but seeing the pillars and steps that are walked to create that specific moment, and allowing that to unfold the way it does, beautifully like that. And then we roll into the second part where they go to Wellington, and New Zealand and them are, of course, they're just having that back and forth match, and playing in Wellington for the second time back to back. Razzie does an incredible job igniting his players, fueling them, giving them that little bit of edge to where just like, why do you think we're playing there 2 years back to back? They're fearful of us. They're scared. They're nervous. They're this. And he mentioned how New Zealand was willing to give away a game against Argentina, a team they've never lost against, just so they could dominate South Africa. Him giving, whether it's true or not, right? We'll never know. But as an athlete, being in the locker room, feeling like an underdog, and having a coach be able to sort of just like light that fire in you, it does something to you. It does something to you, because if you're bought into a program, you start believing it. You start having that mentality, like that Michael Jordan mentality, where you take the slightest thing and turn it into a fuel that burns so deeply, and just so like a white fire just built inside of you, just burns so hot that you believe it yourself, whether it's true or not, and it fuels you for that game or life or whatever have you. And he does an incredible job of pressing the button to ignite his team to perform at their best level. So that win against Australia inspired and gave confidence to the team in New Zealand, where they're just like, you know what, the boys back home fought for us, and now we're going to go over to New Zealand and pay it forward even further as we build towards getting toward the World Cup, and also having that chip on our shoulder, knowing that this is our second year playing in New Zealand. They brought us back over here, and we're going to show them what's up. And I just thought that was really, really cool. And that moment where they're 7 points down to New Zealand, what was it? It was 16 to 9 was what they were down. And Razzie gives the call to the field where he says, we're in bonus. They would take the bonus point. They would still have a week, the following week or the following match, to win the rugby championship. And Razzie just says, you know what, guys, get it across the half line, play it out. Let's get the bonus point. We'll take the loss and then we'll go into the next week and still win the rugby championships. And I really like how the athletes, they heard the command and they just said, to hell with that, Razzie. Like, basically, F you. Like, we're not taking a loss. We have too much on the line. We have too much pride. We have too much as a unit, confidence, belief in ourselves, to just sell it home and take a loss and just take the bonus points just for shits and giggles. I really love how they bit down on their mouthpiece and essentially just drove the narrative forward. Then they had that, Cheslin, my guy Cheslin. I like that guy a lot, man. You already know that. He does that little chip. And then what was his name? Herschel picks it up off the tip and gets the try. Boom. Right there and then it's they have to get the conversion with Andre Pollard way out on that conversion kick, way out that crazy angle. He converts it and they get the tie. They get the tie in New Zealand. And even though it was a tie, it was a win, because those type of moments where, you override your coach and you look and dig down deep as a team and you look each other in the eye and said, to hell with what the coach says. This is us on the field. We've listened to what the coach gave us the game plan, but we're here to execute the game plan, and we're here to execute for one another. That draw was a massive win from a mental perspective, because they believed in one another. They believed in the vision, and they believed in the mission of where they were heading and how they weren't just going to let off the gas. They wanted to really build the character of the team. And I thought that was just such a beneficial part of like who they are, and showing that the trajectory was working, and they were starting to believe in who they are as individuals, who they are as a team, who they are as a nation, and what they were building and what they were trying to accomplish. And that was just very inspiring to see. I think it showed a lot of grit. It showed a lot of tenacity, and that's always, always very inspiring to see. And the next piece was the documentary that I really liked was as they went to Japan. That mindset of they want to be the first team in Japan and they want to be the last team in Japan. So they wanted to get some test matches because Japan was that team that upset them the World Cup before. They knocked them out. They beat them, what was it, the score 34-32, I believe. And Japan upset them as one of the biggest upsets in the history of the Rugby World Cup. And Razzie wanted to sort of just get that one back, in a sense of saying, you know what, we take that loss on the chin, but we're not going to let that be our identity. We're going to fly to Japan. We're going to do a test match weeks prior to the Rugby World Cup starting in Japan, and really solidify that we're here and we're here to win this damn thing. I loved that. And that mindset is just something that you feel in your core, right? Like, it just gives you just chills thinking about it. I absolutely love that. As sort of like a cross section of what's happening. They're in Japan fighting for the life of the team. They're fighting for the jersey, right? The South African rugby jersey. But back home, there's all this turmoil happening with the woman being abused or something happened. I'm not too sure of what happened, but I know it had to deal with abuse and a woman that was I think murdered or something like that. You let me know what happened, Qrew. The ins and outs of that. But there was turmoil happening at home from a political standpoint. And Razzie's mindset was always to be the team. I'll look at the quote. It says, "Team first, because individuals have to learn a lot of shit." So he always believed that you can't be a person going out on the field as a player to inspire first. You have to execute the job, and once the job is done, like you win the World Cup, then you inspire as a result of that victory. That was his mindset, right? And I think to me that's the beauty of it, right? Is that Razzie is an older coach, and his mindset is his mindset. Like, that's something that he's ingrained. It's a belief system that he has in him, and there's nothing wrong with that. But that's the part where elders can learn from the youth as youth learns from the elders. So as like the elder being a Razzie teaching the youth, the squad, like, this is the mindset we want to have. This is the culture that we want to cultivate. This is what we want to have as a team. The youth are able to also inspire the elders because they have a different mindset. They have different exposure. They have different life that they're living and a different perspective. And they were able to essentially change Razzie's older mindset of not thinking of themselves as an inspiration or a role model. They took it on their own shoulder and said, we are a role model, right? And the individual who did it, Mazole Mapimpi, I hope I said it right. Mazole Mapimpi was the athlete that was the one who broke the dam of the inspiration, the unity, the positivity that the nation needed. Having the breakout game that he did, where he had a hat trick against Japan, was absolutely awe-inspiring, because as they dove into his background, he comes from a family where he didn't have a dad. He grew up with his grandmother. His mom passed away early in his life, and he knew that having a grandma, having a sister, being raised by females, he had a different perspective and outlook on how women should be treated and how they were undermined from that nation standpoint. He mentioned how his sister, he remembers the first time his sister being slapped because she wouldn't have sex with a man in South Africa, and how that just fueled him to be like, that women deserve the rights, they deserve the respect, they deserve to be heard. And him scoring his first try, talking about how all that came together, where the right personnel is on the field to change and be the catalyst to not only teach, but to inspire Razzie to change that mindset that he had about not being looking to inspire, but just doing the job. Mazole, scored his try, pulled down his wristband, and he had the woman's name on his wristband. And that little movement of just that little motion of him having that name right on the cameras, him being the person to score that try, him being that voice, the leader, to have that confidence, to have that kindness in him, to have that compassion in him, to represent something bigger than the sport. Yes, I scored a try. Yes, I'm here playing rugby. Yes, we're trying to win the World Cup. But it's not about that. It's about our nation. Our nation's hurting. They're having protests. They're having sit-downs. They're having all this turmoil happening. We're not doing this for us. We're doing this for the entire nation. That was really inspiring. That was a point of when one man, one team, one nation can have so much unity, inspiration, positivity through one action. And that one action of being as that masculine energy, like the people that you look up to in the world for a nation, and having him represent it and say like, hey, this is bigger than us. It wasn't about the try. It was about South Africa. And he was holding that on his heart, on his wrist, and on his soul. And I just thought that was so impactful, and I absolutely loved that. And it just changed the atmosphere in the room for South Africa, because they have female staff, and just for him to draw that emotion, to show the respect, to show the love, and just to have that foresight, right, to be like, this is bigger than the game. It takes a lot of courage to do that and essentially go against your coach, because when you're an athlete, you doing little things like that, if the coach is not accepting of those, you can lose your position on a team, you can be kicked off a team, you can be set on the bench, whatever have you. But he overrode all of those potential outcomes that could have happened and just said, this is bigger than all of us. And I absolutely love that. And to me, that just encompasses the entire documentary up until this point on episode 2, where I'm starting to see that, as I said in the last episode, it's bigger than the game. It's bigger than the game. All these individuals are coming in from their walks of life. You have Eben, you have Herschel, you have Mazole, you have Sia, Faf. Everybody comes from their different cities, their different background, their different culture, their different everything, families, but they come together as a team. They come together as South Africans, and they represent the nation to unite them, to inspire them, to give them confidence, to give them hope, to bring positivity and joy into that nation. I'm loving this series so far, Qrew. Episode 3 of the season 1 of Chasing the Sun was really good. We now finally got to the part where the World Cup 2019 has started in Japan, and it's breaking down all the background starting out leading up to that game, right? So there was the 6 days prior to the World Cup. They talked about the background story of the players and growing up as a kid, how you're envisioning, dreaming, imagining yourself playing on the field. And it all stems from that 1995 World Cup win against New Zealand is how they started off, where they had Nelson Mandela show up to the game. All the athletes were just embracing him and welcoming him on the pitch, and then they ended up winning that game. And it showed how that moment changed, and that was like the click for the nation to have that unity, to have that togetherness, that pride, and just have that sense of camaraderie together with that 95 World Cup win. And it's cool to see how moments like that are so pivotal in the world. And I've talked about it on videos before, to where these athletes and these games are not only to inspire and to ignite a nation, the current generation, but it really inspires, influences, and motivates the up and coming generations, the kids that are watching the games, and the teenagers and things like that, the new generation upcoming, where it gives them something to believe in. Because if you can see something, you can achieve it. And by having pillars of our society, and this being within the world of rugby or any sport, having them win and showcase that success is here, it's achievable, it inspires you, right? And they were talking to the athletes and listening to their stories of them growing up in the villages and the cities that they came from, how they were just, some had families there where their mom their dad or their granddad played rugby, or even just watching the athletes that they were having as their role model, and they just used to play in their backyard, play on the pitch, and just envision themselves in that Springbok uniform. I think that's absolutely incredible to talk about, because no matter where you live in the world, I know, being in America, playing football my entire life, there were athletes that I grew up watching, whether it was like a Barry Sanders run the ball. My favorite player at the time back in the day for the Oakland Raiders was Tim Brown. He was a wide receiver, and just watching those athletes play and just inspiring and inspired me to want to be the best athlete I could be and eventually make the NFL. And I mean, of course, I didn't make the NFL. But it's one of those things where just the belief gets ingrained in you, and having a family of supremely talented athletes. My brothers were exceptional athletes, state record holders, champions, state champions, and just impressive and strong athletes. And I just grew up watching them, wanting to follow in their footsteps, and just saw the hard work, all the dedication and sacrifice that they made to become the best athletes, brothers, and everything and they do. And I just continue to see how having positive role models in your life can have such a positive effect on your life, developing to where you want to do it. And that's what this documentary has been highlighting very well to me, outside of the game, and seeing that all of these men that we see on the field that we may look up to, that inspire us, they had and have the same dreams and visions as us. They're just people, and they're living out their dream, right? They're living out their career. It just so happens to be on the field in front of millions of people. All of our eyes and attention are on them, but we're all living our own dream or manifesting whatever we have in our lives as far as our careers, our lives, and so have you. But it's just so cool to see that they built that and highlighted that in the beginning of the documentary. And then we rolled into the New Zealand game, where South Africa, it was the first match of their pool play. You have two titans going against one another, and South Africa was also favored by some analysts when they were showing some of the clips, which is cool to see, just because of the showcases that they had the years prior, where they started getting that respect, they started getting that attention because of the performances against New Zealand prior. New Zealand just happened to step up to the plate, right? They've been in that situation several times before, being on a huge platform, huge stage within the World Cup, and they beat South Africa. There was controversy during the game where the rucks were collapsing, in a sense, where the New Zealand player kept putting his elbow on the ground, but New Zealand was getting awarded the penalty instead of South Africa. And so that created a lot of tension, animosity, and just mental expenditure. Like they said, like the South African players mentioned, it's exhausting having to fight not only the team in front of you, but having to fight the referees when calls you feel like that should go your way go against you. And it just creates so much mental strain and exhaustion. And having to fight against those elements caused them, from what the documentary highlighted, to just lose that game and just have a collapse in that first game, which was unfortunate. And then that unfortunate event happened where they brought Trevor on, and he got in the ruck, and he was living that moment where he finally gets on the world stage. He mentioned his mom passed away, which is unfortunate, so she didn't get to actually see him play professional rugby. But he finally gets that moment on the biggest stage in the entire rugby world, and then gets into that first, what do you call it? That first scrum. and then his calf just completely blows his calf up. They have to carry him out the game. And I just like that the players gave him his roses, in a sense of like giving him his appreciation and love that he deserved, because they said a lot of times he had been overlooked and in his career and not given the appreciation that he deserved, and just things like that. And it's crazy in sports like how that happens. You finally get to that big moment. You've been working all these years and just grinding and just refining your skill and preparing to get to this moment, and then when you finally get to that moment, at times of injuries like that happen, and it's just like it's a blow to your system, to your heart. Like, man, all this time leading up to this, my body was holding up. It was perfect, and I just end up blowing my calf out in one of the biggest moments of my life. It's crazy how that happens in life and sports at times, and it's just think as like the bigger picture. And I think it's cool that he had the support system from his team, and they were able to do the best to lift him up out of a bad situation, right? Because he wasn't able to fulfill his dream in that year of playing in the World Cup, just because those injuries they take so long to recover from. But it's cool that they highlight every individual from the top of the organization down to all the players, and giving them all the respect that they deserve. And so that led to the Italy game, which was really cool to see. One highlight that I really liked about when they were talking about the Italy game was the stuff that you never see behind the scenes, behind the camera. And it was when they were talking about the logistics setup of South Africa, how they were the team that traveled the least in Japan. And that's just a massive shout out to the staff and everybody involved in coordinating all of the hotels, all the travel, all the logistics that go into getting not only the players where they need to be, but the equipment, the staff, all of the production and hotels and food and all that stuff arranged. So for them to have their logistics set up to where things are running smooth, efficiently, that's, as an athlete, I know how important it is to have those things set up and play to where you're not rushing to get to a game, or you're feeling like you're out of sorts, like you're well rested. Because man, there were times when I was playing college football. I went to a smaller D2 university, New Mexico Highlands University. We're not like a super funded university by any means. And the traveling, like the big D1 colleges that you may be familiar with are like Alabama, Florida State, those types of universities. They fly and have everything taken care of. D1, pristine, top of the line, state of the art facilities and training systems when it comes to nutrition and performance and everything that have you. D2 is completely different, and the school I went to was like the bottom of the rung as far as having all of the state of the art equipment and facilities and food, training tables and all that stuff. And so we had to travel by bus going to our games, no matter where we went, across 16-hour trips on a bus and things like that. And just the effect and toll that traveling can have on you as an athlete, because when you're traveling, you build up swelling and inflammation. You get tight, especially from your speed muscles, your hamstrings, and sitting on your ass on the bus. Your butt, your glutes get tight, your hammies, my quads, calves. And if you're not doing the things you need to be doing, like stretching your feet while you're on the bus, rolling it out, and loosening your body and getting it ready for that game day, it can have a toll and have a massive effect on how you play and how you show up to a game. And the way they were able to set up those logistics and take all of that stress off the players and get them in a state to where they can be comfortable to perform at the highest level, I think that's absolutely exceptional on the staff part of South Africa. And it shows that it takes a village, as that saying says, because yes, the athletes have to perform and do incredibly well. The athletes need the coaches to set that game plan and being the general that is seeing the field from such a high level view, but the players are they're sort of the boots on the ground making those plays come to fruition. But then you have all the support staff giving the players the physio that they need, like loosening their muscles, ice baths, food staff, the logistics of getting their equipment here and there, cleats, uniforms, taping, all that stuff that goes into it. Like, that's the part when you can see how it takes an entire village to make one thing successful. For the players to perform, you need all the other pieces of this machine working together. And that's what I think the documentary highlights very well, is all of the pieces of the South African rugby engine are all working in cohesion to make this dream come to fruition, which is winning the World Cup. So the players are believing in it, the coaches are believing in it, the staff, the families, everything that is a part of the South African rugby franchise, they all had to believe and work in cohesion and as a team to make this thing work. And I think the documentary did a fantastic job at highlighting all of that. And I really love that they're going into the background aspects of it. And this episode, I feel like they did a great job in breaking everything down. And even the cool aspect of that Italian game where they blew the doors off Italy, right? They enforced their will upon them. They, like you said, it wasn't death by 1,000 cuts. They were just hitting them with massive shots from beginning to end. All 80 minutes of just like bloody you up, tear you apart, like bruise you and just destroy you. And they talked about bringing in that 6-2 formation, which I'm learning more about how these formations and setups work in rugby, where they have the 6 forwards and the 2 backs coming off of the bench, known as the bomb squad that you've all been telling me about. It's cool to see how that unfolded, like the methodology, the mindset of structuring that, like the genius it takes to set something up so different than the traditional systems that you're seeing on a sports field. And seeing how Razzie sets that up, it reminds me of, like, if I'm comparing it to like football, for instance, Bill Belichick for the New England Patriots, how when he had that system with Tom Brady, Rob Gronkowski, and all of those athletes, he didn't have the greatest athletes in the world as far as talent. He just had athletes that could execute the system very well, and it was just a plug and play system. If somebody falls out, you plug the next player in and they'll execute the system. And I feel like Razzie has that same type of genius in understanding the game and not just looking at he's a back, he's a forward, put him in, put him out. No, he thinks about it from such a different approach and really structuring the game as a chess match, right? As a chess match, as sort of just an experimenter. Because there are a lot of times we get caught in the systems of how things are normally run. Innovation happens when an outsider comes in. They move their wave to a new beach. And that's where innovation comes. Because if you look in any industry, whether it be like tech or finance or anything, industries get disrupted when somebody from an outside industry comes into an industry where they're not experts in. So like tech guys disrupted finance, thinking like Elon Musk came into finance. Him and Peter Thiel created PayPal. Those are tech guys that came into the finance industry and uplifted it and changed it because they have such a different mindset. And they weren't trained in the structure of traditional finance. And that's how I look at Razzie. He comes into the game of rugby from such a different approach, and he sees it from a different perspective and angle and applies his vision and his hypothesis essentially on a team, and he executes, and the players execute as well. And that's where that genius mentality comes from. And it's you rarely see it in the world of I would say, not even of sports but in life, because those are the people that are shapeshifters in industry. And I think that's what was so cool about seeing him bring on the bomb squad and seeing what they were able to do on the field. And it's unfortunate that controversy happened where Mazzole was he went to the bomb squad as they're celebrating the victory. And if you're not familiar with like the inside jokes of a team from the outside looking in, like how the media looked in, they thought they saw like the bomb squad, which was, all white athletes, and then Mazzole went over there. Makazole, excuse me, I messed his name up. Sorry, I apologize about that. He went over there, but he turned around because he understood the inside joke between them. Like, this is just a bomb squad thing. Like, they're celebrating themselves. But when the media saw it, they didn't have the inside perspective or knowledge of what's going on between the dynamics of that team and those athletes. And so while the team understands what's happening, they're just having a laugh. The media turned it into this thing bigger than it needed to be and tried to create controversy and just basically, in a sense, like derail the positivity of what the team was doing. And it was unfortunate, but I think they did a fantastic job, like Razzie and the athletes, of really coming together, uniting as a unit, and like insulating themselves, knowing that, hey, the outside is trying to deter us from, what it is, what we're trying to achieve. We know what's going on. We still have love, appreciation, positivity for one another. Like, our goal is to move the nation forward. So let's not let the outside distractions move us away from our objective. We stay focused, we stay solid, and we move together as a unit. And he does a fantastic job of uniting the team, and the team does a fantastic job of uniting themselves. And they just have such a strong insulation built around them, where they do a great job of not letting outside distractions knock them off from their vision. And I think that's was like the highlights of the this episode for me. And I just really love how they just continue to grow and give the background story from, the vision of a kid looking up, like dreaming in the field, looking up in the stars and being like, one day I'm going to be a Springbok, one day I'm going to be a professional athlete, to seeing the athlete once they are on the field and seeing how they feel in that moment based on what they thought as a kid and how they feel in that moment and what that it represents to them, what it means to them wearing that jersey, stepping onto the field for their nation, and seeing all the people that it has a positive effect on, and then moving out and pulling out and seeing how much it means to a nation as they're continuing to move this forward, and how they're inspiring, uniting people, and just bringing in that pride, that unity, that joy, and that belief more importantly into a team, into a nation. And it's just really cool to see. It's very inspiring, and I'm absolutely loving this series, Qrew. And I want to hear your thoughts in the comments below. What were your thoughts on this episode 3 when you first watched it all these years ago, as I'm catching up and really learning about South African rugby and what built them into the powerhouse that they are today, Qrew. Thank you so much for being here. I love you. I appreciate you. And we'll be back on the next video for the episode 4 as we start finishing this one out. 2 more episodes left, Qrew. And if you haven't already, drop into our Discord. It's in the descriptions below. And if you're enjoying these, be sure to subscribe and like, Qrew. As always, I appreciate you. I love you so much. I'm here because of you, and I am in the world of rugby full-time with QSN. We're going to continue to grow and have fun together, Qrew. Love you. I appreciate you. Always stay laser focused on your dreams and your vision, and remember that you're in control. Catch you on the next one, all right? Peace.